In this video, I would like to discuss why the inner child needs to be treated. And there are at least two reasons for this. One is how the inner child or the parts interfere with adult decisions. So although adult may set goals and create a dream for him or herself, the inner child may show up in this process to, to interfere with the adult moving forward. For example, a client of mine who is fairly successful, in fact, quite successful in what her career is, but she noticed that when she's just ready to seal a very lucrative deal, she just doesn't do it. There's something comes up and the energy for moving ahead dissipates and she can't do it. So in the map session that I mentioned that I use, Manifesting All Possibilities, we treated the parts who were interfering with her ability to close deals that would have created a wonderful future and fulfilled some of her dreams. What she learned were things like, because she was born 2.5 years after her older sister always resented her and gave her messages that she wasn't important, and she, the older sister, was. She also, the client, always got hand-me-downs, nothing new, from her sister. And on the one hand, she was grateful for everything she received. But the subtle message that the inner child received was she wasn't important enough to get new clothes. She was only worth hand-me-downs. She wasn't worth the investment that her parents had made in her older sister. Ways, experiences, memories like that reinforce the belief the inner child creates. So, part of the story of the inner children is when they experience trauma, feeling left alone and separated from what they need, they create stories to make the whole thing make sense to them. And one of the stories they create very commonly is, I'm not important, I'm defective, I'm not lovable, I'm not deserving or worthy of someone paying attention to me or of life delivering what she or he wants. So these are beliefs that create low self-esteem. Many adults walk around doing their jobs, being in relationships, and not experiencing much success and happiness and joy because their inner belief is they don't deserve it. So unless this young part is healed, or the parts that were created in the trauma aren't relieved of their negativity and empowered, they drag the adult down. Another kind of belief that can be created that is really taxing for many successful people is being overly responsible. So once the young child found that she could not depend on parents or the world to fulfill her needs, she decided it was entirely up to her. So one particular client was tremendously successful, even from really young, because she acquired the tools and the kind of thinking that helped her create businesses that were successful and lucrative. But later on, sitting on the top of a very, very successful practice where her staff were all earning six figures, she discovered that this young part learned to be overly responsible. So she was exhausted. No matter a friend or client or a family member, this young child, this young part had the strategy that she had 1,000% responsibility for people and projects. So she would not rest and worked herself tired, exhaustingly to fulfill, to do the projects. So although she was successful, it came at a huge price because of the beliefs and strategies the young parts, the inner child, or the young parts that had created that drove the script for the adult. So these are two ways in which the, create the reasons why the young child or the parts need to be treated. Now we can talk about fears and anger coming up in adult relationships or careers, any situation where the adult is triggered by something someone would say or some way that they were treated and they respond with anger, which they can't control. For example, the young child may have decided that authorities, after all, parents let her down. Authorities aren't really to be trusted. But carrying that pattern, relating to an authority, a boss, a supervisor, she or he might be extra sensitive to what is being said. So they kind of turn a deaf ear and don't really hear how they can do better, or they respond in a way that the authority figure, the boss or the supervisor can see is negative and that they're not really hearing or receiving. So as a consequence of being triggered, the adult in his or her career or in a relationship isn't treated well after that because the child showed up and acted out a minor tantrum with someone very important, which can spoil things. Other ways in which the inner child can show up is when anything new on the job, a new project, or in a relationship, a new part of the relationship comes up, they might stall and struggle and be not emotionally available because it triggered the young part who feared the unknown, who when experienced fear just went blank or emotionally withdrew. This doesn't leave the adult with all his or her resources to deal with the situation, so that they become obstacles in career and relationship. So once you begin to realize that these inner children really need to be healed because they create struggling for the adult, you may want to be curious about how to solve this dilemma where a number of parts are operating in opposition to what the adult wants in his or her life. I am familiar with two methods, the inner child method, which you'll find in my book, Listen to the Cries of Your Heart, And the other very powerful method that I often usually use, and conjoin it with inner child method, is called MAP, Manifest All Possibilities. Now, I've already used some of the language of MAP, so this will become familiar to you. Anyone who has studied human development, um, personal development, will probably have come across the issue of unconscious or subconscious material, that memories and beliefs are so deeply in the unconscious or subconscious, they either don't know them or they can't do anything to extricate them. Life coaches and others may help you consciously by creating affirmations or creating scenarios to help you take on a different view of yourself. But this view that is blocking the adult has had a long life since early childhood. Living for decades, it doesn't take much effect for just a short intervention in the child, in the adult, trying to deal with the child part. So we have this marvelous method that was created maybe 2 years ago, based on the work of Dr. Gary Flint, a researching clinical psychologist who studied the most difficult clients, dissociative identity disorder ones. They are the ones that you might know as split personality, or the books from like the Three Faces of Eve. The idea being that the trauma in the young child was so severe that alters were created, alternate personalities. A personality split from the main conscious personality, and these alters take over sometimes in adult situation, unknown to the main personality. The parts are usually, or the alters, are amnesiac to each other. So all the main personality might know is they blacked out and they don't remember anything about it. So it takes deep, consistent years and years of work to work with a personality that is so splintered. Dr. Flint worked with such people, patients, for at least 12 years. What was different about Dr. Flint is that he engaged their subconscious to learn the most effective ways to treat them. And with MAP, we have the gifts of what he learned in the system. We can work with your subconscious to neutralize pain and difficult negative experiences and emotions. So within one session, we can handle an issue or a set of memories or the belief of low self-esteem, for example, and make huge progress. I have clients who can't believe the changes that one session can create for them. One of them, from my inner child work, reported that for 40 years or 50, she has awakened with anxiety every morning of her life. But after her inner child sessions and the work she was able to do, she woke up without anxiety. Very recently, with a MAP client, she told me that I didn't know this, but every morning, all her life, she would wake up in a bad mood, very unhappy, very grumpy. But after a few MAP sessions, she actually woke up happy. She couldn't remember exactly what treatment and what it is that we treated, but enough parts were treated so that she could wake up feeling optimistic and happy versus pessimistic and grumpy. So these are how inner child work and MAP can work with the inner children or the parts that are showing up in your adult life if you would look closely. And when these obstacles, when these parts are addressed and treated, a new life is created. Now, I want to say something that people who work with inner children don't often say. When I first talked about the separation issues that created these parts of inner children early in life, from a spiritual point of view, this is the separation that souls felt in the beginning of time when they left the Garden of Eden, where they had the mad idea, what would it like to be apart from God divinity? This is the separation experience that shows up in our human lives and which start us off sort of on the wrong foot, but it defines the classroom for what human life is. This is not a free ride. Human experience is a school, a curriculum where we need to learn who we are as spirit and learn love and forgiveness. I do this work especially because spirit calls to me people who can work with me and who are ready for this healing so that they can touch spirit in their hearts. You see, the separation in human experience made the young child forget who he or she is. In essence, pure innocence. In essence, spirit. In essence, connected to divinity deep in their hearts and connected to that kind of wisdom so that when they view and listen to teachers and gurus and wisdom literature, sometimes they say, of course that's true. It's because they're remembering something they already knew but forgot. So this is the context in which I do inner child and map work. And I invite you to join me if any of this makes sense to you. Thank you.